Eternia needed a hired gun, and luckily, he had many. Here's your look at the brand new Master Universe Origins Rio Blast, Heroic Transforming Gunslinger. Rio Blast made his first appearance as He-Man's quick-draw deputy in the Mattel mini-comic, The Fastest Draw in the Universe. A member of the heroic warriors, the cyborg cowboy destroys his opponents with a pack of blasters on his back and an arsenal of laser guns concealed in his chest, legs, and arms. Making the first ever appearance in the Origins line, Rio Blast is armed and ready to fire up your display. Oh, nice. It's Tom Selleck with sidearms. Let's take the tape measure and see how tall the Master Universe Origins Rio Blast stands. Now, I probably paid a little bit more on this guy than I really needed to. I ordered it from a different site that was selling him for around $60. I realized, though, that Mattel Creations site still has him available, and he's selling for $32 Canadian. So, yeah, I probably paid a little bit more than I needed to, but I'm glad to finally have Rio Blast in my collection. As for how tall he stands, according to the tape measure, it's going to be about 5.5 inches in height, or roughly about 14 centimeters tall. Someone who's not sporting a mustache, here's what Rio Blast looks like with He-Man. Similar style of body, similar size as well. Let's bring in some of the Master's oddities, though. I mean, one of the things I really liked about the Master Universe line, even as a kid, was that it was just an open door. Any design wasn't ever thrown out. You could have someone a little bit more rooted in, like, the caveman days of He-Man, and something so crazy, like a firefighting elephant. Here's also, speaking of oddities, here's what the figure looks like with Extendar. And if we're going to be talking a little bit about Mattel Creations, here's also what he looks like with Cyclone. Not being a retail release, no, but Rio Blast still manages to come include with a paper pamphlet. The pamphlet's a little different this time around. Instead of showing you the swappable, mixable parts, it only actually shows you how to install the backpack on the back of his body. Now, if the 3 steps seem a little confusing, clickety-click, barb a trick. Don't worry, I'll show you guys in this review. That's what I'm here for. That's what I get paid for. I get paid very little. I actually get paid in soup. Soup's not generally all that good either. Producer Tony, I'm looking at you. Let's throw that off, though, to the side. The figure does also come include with a mini-comic. Star Marshal is the entitled one, and actually does have Leech on the side. That's one of the other characters that we had looked at in this, well, actually this week. We looked at the Cartoon Collection Leech. Have you had a chance to watch that review? You haven't? Oh, come on. Get out. No. Go grab yourself your complimentary soup bowl and on your way out. I'm just kidding. Or am I? The comic itself, though, is going to be exclusive to Rio Blast. I can't imagine it's going to be used again. It does feature, of course, predominantly the character on the front. I always really like the look of Rio Blast. He really reminds me of Brave Star. Brave Star was another cartoon I really liked. I'm actually kind of surprised with all the things that Mattel has done so far. You think of, like, the Turtles of Grayskull. Now you're thinking of Thundercats. That's going to be also a collaboration that they're going to be doing down the road. How have we not gotten ourselves a Origins line of Brave Star? Brave Star. Why not? Brave Star. I'm throwing that out there. Featured inside, though, we've got some really nice artwork. And I'm going to be careful not to damage this comic at all, because this is a one and we're done. We're not getting this comic again. I mean, I say that. Watch we get this comic again. Let's move that off to the side. One thing that's also interesting as well is that on the very back of this, he's riding a robotic horse. I don't think, first of all, we're going to be getting a robotic horse for Rio Blast. But again, that does remind me of Brave Star. Come on, Mattel. Brave Star, the Origins line. The other included thing that the figure does have... now, let me just say this, first of all. The figure has blasters that are already pegged into his hands. Ouch, that's got to hurt. He also has hoses on the sides of his arms. This is all kind of stuff that already comes with the figure when you get him out of the packaging. The only technical thing that he has as an accessory that isn't on him when you immediately get him out. Why am I waving my hand so much? If the figure comes included with his blaster backpack. I really like the look of this quite a lot. It kind of reminds me of something I would have seen from, like, the New Adventures of He-Man. Is that a word we really even want to throw around right now? The New Adventures of He-Man? Making sure I'm not getting thrown any turnips at me. This basically will just attach onto the back of his body. If you had been paying attention to the 3 steps on the instructions, clickety-click, you'll know that this attaches on the back. It's not that hard, though, at all. Basically, if you look at the back of his body, you have these longer areas, and then you have these little shorter that aren't as long as them. They're about half the size. When you put this on its back, you don't put it in this way. You put it in so that these line up to here. They put it in like this on an angle, and then basically you just twist it up, and that locks it in place. It survives as well the blizzard test. I don't think Rio Blast has to worry all much about blizzards. But if he ever had a blizzard, I'm sure where he's growing up and policing the town, I'm sure a blizzard would melt pretty fast. But that's going to ensure that that's not going to be going anywhere. Now, if you were to look at this figure and you happen to have yourself the vintage Rio Blast, which I don't, it's a very identical looking figure. The only thing that's a little bit different is that the hoses that are attaching onto the arms now would have just been molded, I believe, to his arms. So these would have just been like basically just part of the molding. These actually do have attach, and it's one issue I do have with Rio Blast is that they don't attach securely. When you start to move his arms around, I think I have them far enough in there, but you may find yourself frequently, and I mean frequently, attaching these back into the provided holes. These just plug in place like that. And obviously you're going to rinse and repeat the steps over here as well. But yeah, moving the figure around from time to time, these hoses do come loose. If obviously you're going to be rotating his arm all the way around, that's first of all a no-no. That's going to pull this guaranteed, and that's going to come loose. So you just want to make sure that these are always attached securely. These also attach into his hands. Now these can be removed if you want, but unfortunately he's just going to have like this big ugly looking hole in his hands. Well, let's just say you don't like your Rio Blast at all with the blasters. These could technically be detached, just like that. It looks like the Crow right there. Again, these basically will just plug on the insides of his hands. That's the way it's supposed to look. I suppose maybe you could probably put them on the outside as well, but Rio Blast always likes to conceal his firearms. The thing that's cool, though, about them is that being that they are pegged and all, you can just basically swivel them in, so it looks like he's a quick draw. So he brings his arm up, swivels the cannon forward, and he's got his blasters. Now, you already have seen what little movement I've done for the arms. These hoses have already come loose. This is probably going to happen a lot. Don't worry. We're going to be seeing this, I'm sure, quite frequently during this review. The thing that's also really cool about Rio Blast is that he conceals so many different concealed weapons. He has one in his chest, he has ones in his legs, and then obviously he has the big backpack one on the back of his body. To open up his chest, for example, and the original vintage toy would have had this as well, basically you just take the top piece here and you flip it forward. This reminds me of Long Arm from the Cops days. Remember Cops? Central Organization of Police Specialists? Dun, 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 dun. I'm not going to sing. But that does look like a Long Arm. It just reminds me of the character. So it basically he's packing heat there on the front of his body. That basically just folds up in place and snaps in place. And then he also has concealed thigh cannons. That's a weird place to store guns, is in your thighs. But these basically just hinge out like this. And pew, 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 pew. He's essentially shooting from his kneecaps. I don't know how easy it would be to run, because if he's running forward like this, wouldn't he just basically be shooting up in the air, or potentially shooting himself in the face? Ouch. That probably would be painful. And again, basically just these fold up. Before we look at his backpack, let's look a little at his face. I said earlier, though, it looked a little like Tom Selleck. I know it doesn't look at all like Tom Selleck. Unfortunately, though, with mine, you probably can see right here, I've got scraped paint on the side of his hair. Now, I thought the one that was responsible for this was the backpack, but you'll see, while it comes pretty close to his hair, it didn't come close enough to scrape it, so it may have actually come out of the packaging like that. Oh, that's a shame. For the money I spend on this guy. Mustache looks good, though, in Rio Blast. The colors, I think, are pretty close, to the original vintage toy. Very bright blue that they've got to the Marshall top that he has. Of course, he's got the brown gloves there. Lower khaki pants. And then I guess he's got kind of like spats down below. It's a really nice looking figure. It looks very much like the original vintage toy. So how the backpack works is, once this is pegged in place, this whole assembly piece slides up these tracks. And you want to make sure it kind of gets as far up as it does, because if it's a little bit lower like this, it's not going to clear his shoulders. And even then, that might have been one of the things that may have scraped it. But no, I made sure that the canopy was all the way up before I brought this down. If, by the way, though, you don't have this all the way up, and yeah, you do bring this forward, you can see how close that gets to the hair. Now, obviously, the scrape is right here, so yeah, it wouldn't have been this at all. It must have came out of the packaging that way, but that gets pretty close in quarters. Pretty close. Now, I prefer myself to actually bring this much higher up, so just get to basically the end of the track, and then bring it forward. And not only does he have himself now sights, like little goggles that he's looking through, but then he's got the blasters on either side. Now, Bruce Willis had gone on saying that in the original Die Hard film, when he was shooting underneath the table, the gun was so close to his ear that it caused permanent deafening. Now, that's Bruce Willis. Now, you can imagine, though, with guns being so close to Rio Blast's ear like this, can this guy even hear what's going on? Does he have himself, like, Western hearing aids on? What? Sorry, what? Maybe you want the guy that has guns all over his body be able to properly hear. But yeah, I gotta imagine maybe he's got silencers or something on the insides of those guns, because yeah, shooting so close like this to his head, not only is he gonna be causing like headaches frequently, but probably permanent deafening as well. The way that the canopy works, I think, is nicely done. I mean, again, like it basically slides up and down the track. It looks very much like the original 80s toy. But again, like if you want to have your Rio Blast displayed on the shelf like that, I think it's a little too much. I, for myself at least, would like to display the figure on the shelf with his mustache very predominantly shown. So for me, I might actually just slide this down just a little bit and have the cannon sticking on the back of his body like that. So the figure's articulation, going back to Rio Blast's head. Head's going to be in a ball joint, so of course, yeah, it rotates all the way around. Head's going to look down and look up, and yeah, moves back and forth as well. His waist is just on a standard swivel, nothing new there. His arms are going to rotate normally, but again, like if you're going to rotate these all the way around, guaranteed those are going to pop right off. Yeah, the figure's arms do hinge out at 90 degrees. I couldn't help but also notice with mine that there's extra like little bit of plastic that's on the inside of his elbow there. I'm going to see if I can get myself like a little knife or something and try to scrape that out. It's just a little bit of extra piece that probably is left behind from casting in the mold. You can see right there. The more that I look at it, the more that it bothers me. I have to see if I can get rid of that. There's no swivel here for the glove. The glove is basically just molded to the rest of his arms. The hands at least do rotate. They're not attached to anything. So even though he does have pistols embedded inside his palms, you can't imagine wouldn't that be a painful thing to have? At least you can rotate the hands all the way around. Rio Blast legs easily split out. They're on ball joints. You can take, of course, the legs, move forward, move them back. There's a swivel down below here. I did notice, though, that the lower legs on my Rio Blast are really loose. This one is the looser of the two. Still, he has a single hinge in the knee for those. Hinge back and forth on the ankle, and you can also rock them as well. Other than just the one issue that I have with a little bit of paint that's clearly been flaked on mine, still, I think it probably came out of the factory that way because, you know, with the way that this whole gun assembly moves forward, you can, like, just look at that. Like, that's close, but that's not close enough to scrape the plastic. So it must have come out of the factory, like I said, that way. You know, again, like, just other than the fact that I have to worry about this guy's hearing, I do like the look of Rio Blast quite a lot. I don't like the fact that I paid a little bit more for him, but unfortunately, though, that's one of the cases. If you're somebody like myself that maybe doesn't do nearly enough shopping around, if you're a smart collector would then check around to different sites and see the lowest price available. The funny thing enough, though, ironically enough, instead of looking around to other sites to see where I can get Rio Blast, I should have really went to the source. I should have went to Mattel immediately, and I would have noticed that not only is he still in stock, but he is still in stock for less of the price than what I ended up paying. I don't want to be the guy that tells you that Mattel Creations still has Rio Blast available, and then after this review goes live, you guys all go over to Mattel Creations, and he's sold out. Then you're going to be like, what's the deal with this idiot? He told us he was available. I got my hopes up. I went to the site, and sure enough, he's sold out. Let me just say, though, backing up just a bit, my friends, at the time I'm doing this video, he's still available. He's selling still for $32 Canadian. So if you're buying this in US, he's going to be a little bit less than that. And he's also capped at 3 per customer. I guess they want to make sure that not everybody's going to be buying 100 Rio Blasts. Who's going to be buying 100 Rio Blasts? If anything, I could see buying one to keep loose on the shelf, another one maybe to have it sealed and on the wall, and then maybe, I guess, if you want to have a third one. But who in their right mind is going to be buying 100 Rio Blasts? Probably the same site that bought 100 of these things and was marking them up. I think I ended up paying around $60 for them. I mean, I was trying to justify, at least in my head, okay, like maybe if you add the shipping and, you know, the brokerage fees. No, it was a Canadian site. So if anything, they probably bought the Rio Blast for $32, marked them up by like $10, $20, and then was selling them on their site. Because like I said, this idiot here paid a little bit more for him. He's still well worth it. I like the look of Rio Blast. He's a character that really does make the most out of his gimmick. But Master Universe as a whole is a really gimmick heavy line. And yet though, with the origins, few and far between have we actually gotten ourselves any Mattel Master Universe figures that have actually still retained their gimmick. With Rio Blast, it's not that he swings at all in his waist or anything has to pop up. He has like a flap front that opens up on his chest to conceal some heat. He's also got it in his thighs as well. I like that he still retains pretty much all the same gimmick and features that the original vintage toy had as well. I'm still unfortunately miffed that mine had a little bit of paint flakage there on the side of his face. And I know it's not from the blasters, the back, that little canopy piece that he has on his backpack, because while it comes close, it doesn't come close enough to scrape the paint. I'm still worried about him being deaf. Because again, like if you've seen the interviews with Bruce Willis, he said like the real reason why he has such a hard time hearing now is because that Die Hard scene where he's shooting the guy underneath the table. Don't ever fire a firearm. Well, let me just say in general, don't fire firearms. But if you're going to do that at terrorists, make sure though that you don't have the gun so close to your ear and you're not shooting underneath the table. You're not going to see what you're shooting at. Why do we even have this conversation? We're just going to stop the conversation right there. Have you guys had the chance to pick up Rio Blast? Let me know down below in the comment section. Like I said, again, at least right now, he's available right now on Mattel Creations' site. If you guys did enjoy this video, do it a solid and throw it a like. You guys want to stick around for more so? I hope so. Hit that subscribe, turn on that bell, and of course come back. As always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.